Hi, it's Anastasia.
Hello, everyone. It's Samantha, and today we have a very special guest. We have Mo Trezise here with us. She came all the way from California.
Mhm.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're super excited to have her. She was actually our conference speaker last year, and her classes were like literally
Amazing,
full out,
full.
like people standing up, like such good classes.
Yeah.
So we're excited to have her here, pick her brain a little bit, and get to know her journey. So if you don't mind just kind of sharing like your journey, how you got started, feel free to go into as much detail as you want, to be honest.
Okay. I got started as originally a makeup artist, and I wanted to go to school just for makeup. And then I remember like talking with my counselor, and she's like, you should like do something else too, like maybe aesthetics or something. So I ended up doing the esthetician program, and I was working as a makeup artist after graduating school. I was doing like fashion shows and bridal makeup and stuff. And I felt like that wasn't really like my thing. It was like
Mhm.
so fast paced, and like the fashion world is like so different, than like my vibe. And so I was like, well, I have my esthetician license. Like, I guess I should use it. So I got a job at a waxing place, and then it's like at another waxing place. And then I ended up at a place that did both waxing and facials. And I remember, so our thing there at that place was Brazilian waxes. And that was like really like not my thing. Since they also did facials, I would be like, put all the facials like on my schedule. Like I would much rather do like one facial in an hour than like four Brazilians in an
Mhm.
hour. I just very quickly like became like the facial girl at this
Mhm.
place. And all of my clients would always just like rave about my sense of touch and everything. And I was like, I think I'm like onto something here. So I decided to go to massage school. And when I went to massage school, that was where I just fell in love and was introduced to the whole world of holistic health, alternative therapies, Eastern medicine, etc. And so I completed my 500 hours of massage therapy. And then I loved it so much, I decided to continue on and study the 1,000 hours for HHP, which I'm not sure if you guys have that here in Florida.
No, what
No.
is that?
We have it in California. It's for holistic health practitioner.
Mhm.
So it's like an additional licensure. And then after that, then I was again like so in love with my educational journey that then I went on to study traditional Chinese medicine, Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, which is an acupuncture school.
Mhm.
Speaking of our guest speaker yesterday, Dr. Ao, he's also a Chinese medicine.
And I was going crazy
Doctor.
because I love acupuncture
Yeah.
so much.
Oh, nice. Yeah, totally. I know. I heard you guys talking about it on like a previous episode. Too,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was going to school full time and working full time. So I very quickly burnt myself out. I was just in my first year of my acupuncture program, and I ended up dropping out actually because my health was just so bad at the time. And for me, it was getting to the point where it was like literally preventing me from getting to school,
Mhm.
I wasn't able to show up anymore. And so I was like, I need to take a break, really just like heal myself. I was beginning to have like a little bit of like imposter syndrome, a little bit. Cause I was like,
Mhm.
how could I be in this industry of holistic health, but yet be unhealthy myself,
Mhm.
And so I took some time to heal. And that was where I just kind of had like an epiphany of sorts of like, oh, I'm not meant to continue on and study acupuncture, which is, by the way, like a 6-year program and like over $100,000.
Wow.
People don't realize it's basically medical school.
Yeah.
And
You're becoming
so,
a doctor.
yeah,
basically.
exactly. Yeah. Doctor of Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, had this epiphany like, oh, I'm not meant to continue on. I should actually combine and integrate all of my holistic knowledge with being an esthetician.
Mhm.
And so at that time, I was always just kind of looking for like an organic facial or something. And I feel like even at that time, like around maybe a little less than 10 years ago, even just finding a holistic facial or an organic facial was something hard to find,
Mhm.
let alone gua sha or massage focused or buccal massage, etc. And so I felt like there was kind of a white space there. And so I just decided to pursue that. And ever since then, things have really taken off. And yeah, so that's a little bit about like my background and my training and such. So
I always love hearing like their background because it's like I I obviously met you. I know what you do, but to see like where you started, like as a makeup artist, I had no idea.
I had no idea.
that-
When you said that, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I used to do makeup and I also used to do Brazilians, like where I worked at before. Like we used to call it like, well, I don't want to even say what we used to call it, but we used to do like 30 Brazilians in a day. Like it was
Wow.
crazy. And so I was like, I did not pay so much money for esthetician school
Mhm.
to be doing
to
this.
do this. Like this was not my jam.
But it's
So,
cool that you like ended up where you're supposed to be. And
Yeah.
even though like you didn't continue with the acupuncture school, like you weren't meant to,
Yeah,
you were meant
absolutely.
to. And it's cool that you
Mhm.
acknowledged that too. And
Mhm.
you didn't get all like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe someday when I'm like really
Yeah.
rich, I'll
Uh-huh.
go back to school for acupuncture, and if I have like infinite time resources.
Mhm.
But yes, to your point, I feel like that really gave me like a good solid background and foundational knowledge in Chinese medicine. And with that knowledge, I'm able to integrate it with what I do with skincare and
Mhm.
massage. So
I love that.
Yeah.
So we talked a bit earlier about like how successful you were like right from the beginning, which I don't think is traditional for a lot of estheticians. Like a lot of estheticians, maybe around like the 6 months mark, will start seeing success. But
Mhm.
you told me you were making like 5 figures your first month.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, totally. So, just to set the scene a little bit, right after I had gotten out of school and kind of had my healing journey, my awakening, so to say, I found myself working at a spa and it was kind of a startup. So, I had helped this woman completely start this spa business from the ground up. Basically, I had the brains and the background knowledge of, the spa industry, and she was just a business person.
Mhm.
So I helped her start up this business. And at the time, basically overworked and underpaid. I don't know if it's legal here in Florida, but I was an independent contractor.
Mhm.
And it's since now like not really legal to do that in California. But I say all of this to say, just to kind of set the stage a little bit, when I was working for her, I was just making a commission on my services. It was a very low commission. I was having to pay my taxes and everything. And so I remember one day when I ended up like totaling up everything and looking at my numbers, I was like, wait, I'm making like less than $8 an hour and I'm working full time. And so I
Wow.
found myself on food stamps actually because I was just trying to make ends meet. I remember one day I just kind of came to her and I was like, hey, like we need to like readjust this situation. I love working here and everything, but like I'm not even able to survive, financially. And she was like, okay, cool. I'll come up with something. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I thought
Mhm.
like just a little speed bump. And then basically she comes back to me with this contract that says that I have to sign this contract for this raise.
Mhm.
And once I sign it, then I can't work anywhere else as an esthetician for 1 year after
Mhm.
leaving there, which is basically a non-compete, which is also, again, illegal in California. I don't know how it is here.
Mhm.
It's different state to state, but I basically was like, I'm not comfortable signing this. Like, I can't do it. And she's like,
Yeah.
okay, then you can leave. And so I got
Oof.
fired literally overnight.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was, slaving away for somebody else's business and,
Yeah.
putting all of my heart and effort into it, barely making anything. I was on food stamps and then she fires me overnight. I had no idea I was going to be fired or that I had no inkling that this was like the end. And so I just remember being like, okay. And I was so shocked. But since I was the only esthetician there, she had ended up having to close the spa when she fired me. And
Oh,
so she definitely shot herself in the foot a little bit. And
A little bit.
Yeah, but,
Right.
but
A
how
lot
long
of
was
it.
it
Yeah.
from the moment that you guys had opened it to the moment that you got fired?
It was about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And also, like, mind you, like I had really helped build up this place.
Yeah, of
and
course.
so I had been booked out like 3 months in advance. Like that was pretty like
Wow.
consistent for me, like 5 days a week being booked out 3 months. When she fired me, she sent out an email to all of the clients, all the client lists, and was just like, Mo is no longer here. The spa is closed for 2 weeks. We'll update you guys.
Mhm.
And so with that being said, I had never exchanged any information with clients. This was kind of like around the time Instagram was kind of like starting to get started. And so to, kind of condense the story a little bit, basically overnight I had all these clients reaching out to me. I had like 30 clients that were like, hey, where are you going? I want to follow you.
Mhm.
You know, they found me like on Facebook, they found me on Instagram. Some of them, like this one girl, she like went to the same hairstylist. She like texted the hairstylist, like, do you
Wow.
have her number? Like people were like literally like hunting me down.
Oh my
And so like
gosh.
overnight I had like 30 people contact me and I was like, oh my God.
Well, that's because you
Yeah.
must be like, I've never gotten a facial from you, but you must
Mhm.
be really amazing at what you do.
Yeah.
Like that
Thank
just
you.
shows that your skills, you know,
Mhm.
and your talent is
Mhm.
what people remember. and
Thank you.
want.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was always just kind of just showing up 110%,
Yeah.
you know, and
Mhm.
I think that really stuck with clients and they really valued that. And yeah, so I had all these people reaching out and they were like, where are you going? I was like, I don't
I don't
even know.
My house.
Yeah. And so then randomly, I had kind of like a friend of a friend who she owned a salon and she was like, hey, I have a room for rent. If you want to come rent it, it's $75 a day.
Mhm.
And literally, it was not even a room. I'm not kidding you guys. It was like literally a closet. Like I could fit the table just like on one side of the room. Like you could not walk all the way around the table.
Oh,
You could
wow.
only like scoot like sideways
Oh my
on the table.
goodness.
But I did it and I was booked like right away. So
Uh-huh.
I remember like I bought like all of my supplies and everything. It was like maybe like $800 for like steamer, hot towel cabbie, like
Yeah.
linens, everything. And then I had worked 2 days of full clients and I like made it all back in a day.
Nice.
And I was like, oh my God, this is
Mhm.
awesome. And then it just like kept going after that. Then it was like all of my days were just automatically just booked. And
Mhm.
I was from the start just kind of having like the opposite problem that a lot of people have. I know sometimes people are like trying to just like get business in through the doors. But for
Mhm.
me, like since the very beginning, I've just always had like almost like too much than what I know to do with.
Mhm.
Yeah, so very quickly in my first month, I was just kind of like, again, since it was all just kind of thrown together overnight, I was like taking payments from like Venmo, cash, PayPal, like, you
Mhm.
know, this and that, credit card. And then I remember like, you know, just kind of like doing the math after like 3 weeks or so, and I had made over $10,000.
Wow.
Um, and so it was just like so shocking.
And how many days a week were you working?
3 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how
Mhm.
many clients a day?
Honestly, I would work as long as I could in those
Uh-huh.
days because,
Mhm.
again, I was just trying to get as many people in. So I would see like 5 to 7, maybe
Mhm.
8.
That's
Oh,
a
Just
lot,
that's a
depend.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was definitely
You
like
were
I was
hustling.
hustling, you know.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's how I very quickly like, you know, 1 month was on food stamps and then the next month 10K.
Mhm.
And then after that, it just like kept rolling in. And so then a few months after is when I built my first brick and mortar. Yeah, that's kind of where.
But for you
Mhm.
told me that like when even though you're making 10,000 at 1st, you
Mhm.
weren't actually like taking it home with you, right?
Yeah,
Where was like the
totally.
money going and how did you kind of like
Yeah.
figure that out and then like readjust?
I think it took me a long time to figure that out, honestly. Well, it's so funny, like not to sidetrack too much, but I see in a lot of these like esthetician Facebook groups, like people are like, who here is making like over $10,000? And it's like, okay, well, like let's clarify. Is it net or is it gross? And is it what the business makes or is
Yeah.
it what I take home? You know,
Mhm.
because those are totally different things. My business, yes, was making over, you know, 5 figures
Mhm.
in the first month, but I was not taking that much home.
Mhm.
Also because like I had mentioned, when I first started, it was all just like thrown together. So I just kind of got the bare minimum supplies that I
Mhm.
needed, really.
Mhm.
Because I had always kind of had it like in the back of my head too, that, well, if this doesn't work out, like I can go back to working for somebody else. So I was not really like fully committed or like dedicated to like this big dream or vision of like, I'm going to have my own spa and do all
Mhm.
this and that. I was like, well, for right now, I know I have a lot of clients who want to see me. And so, like, let me
Yeah.
just have this little space, you know? And so, every step of the way, I basically was like constantly like upgrading.
Mhm.
And so, like, even after like 3 months, it's like, okay, making $10,000 every month. It was like, then I was like, I invested all of that back into the business of building my first brick and mortar, you
Mhm.
know, or of getting new supplies supplies or new skincare and such. And so it took me really streamlining all of my finances and all of like my payment methods, even because I was like kind of like half under the table, kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing here, you know? And it took me just like streamlining everything to kind of figure out like, okay, this is where things are going and I should readjust because, you know, when you come into like that much money so fast, it's almost like you don't know like what to do with it. You know, some people might just hold on to it and some people will spend it like crazy. For me, I always wanted the best for my clients. So I'm like, I want to get them this new massage table or like, I want, you know, this or that. So I was always trying to like upgrade things, but it was sometimes to my own detriment because then I was realizing like, wait, how did my business generate this much in a month, but yet I barely took home X amount, you know?
Yeah.
And so it took me really prioritizing, like I would have to like sit down and be like, okay, this is what the business needs. This is what it's going to cost, like basically budgeting, you know, which again, like I came into all of this. And when I started my business, I was 22.
When you had like your room, you were 22?
Yeah.
Aw.
So it was just like a baby, you know? So, I mean, I had moved out of my parents' house when I was 18. So, I mean, I was like managing my own finances, but like to come into like that much and be managing
That
all
young
of,
is crazy.
yeah. So it was definitely mismanaged.
But you've learned from it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from it. Yeah. And so now that's been like one of my main things is like financial literacy with my business of like, okay, I need to make sure I'm always prioritizing paying myself first. I need to make sure that I'm budgeting, setting aside for things that like you don't expect, like, oh, there was a flood in the bathroom overnight and I have to repair it. You know, I have to have an emergency fund. Or quarterly taxes, like, oh shit, I sold so many products and I wasn't saving any of the taxes. Like now I have this bill that's due, you know? So just all of these unexpected things that come up because again, like with starting a business, it's like, I just did it like overnight and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was Googling things half of the time or asking around my other business owner friends like, hey, how do you do this? Or what about this? And blah, blah, blah. And so I really learned how to just kind of manage my finances in that sense, the hard way, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is like, were there any resources or like mentors specifically that you feel like helped you?
I think I kind of just read like all of like the classic like financial literacy books, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad is like a classic one or yeah, I just kind of like followed different books like that.
And you kind of just learned from your mistakes, it sounded.
Yeah, learn from my mistakes of like, oops, I didn't save any tax money aside for quarterly taxes. I'm gonna make sure next time I do. You know, or like what I noticed like during COVID, like in a lot of like Facebook groups, when we had like the quarantine, like shutdowns and stuff, people were like, oh my God, like I collected all these deposits and I spent it, you know? And so that's like also like another
I remember
thing,
those days.
you know? And so a lot of things, honestly, like I learned the hard way with all things business.
And could you give any advice to, you know, anyone who's starting up with becoming a business owner, having learned from the lessons that you've learned, any advice that you can give for them of like what to do from the start?
Definitely from the start, just know your numbers. Just like having everything separated from the beginning as well. Because what I find as I do mentor other people in this industry is that sometimes they have like poor boundaries, I would say, with money between their own money and the business's money. And so like the first things first is like getting a business bank account, you know, so that way all of your expenses can be through the business bank account. And that way all of your transactions can also be through there. And so ultimately then you can really start to track everything and see what's coming in and also what's going out, where it's going out, where you're spending the most, and just prioritize again, like paying yourself is something that's so important, and making sure you're setting aside, you know, because sometimes again, sometimes people think like, oh, I made 10,000, so I made 10,000, you know, but no, it's like maybe you actually made like 5,000, you know, after all the bills are paid and, you know, money is set aside for taxes or for salary or whatever it may be. I actually had an esthetician friend who she was doing everything. She had never paid taxes for her business in 3 years, or maybe it was 2 years. And I was like, let me hook you up with my CPA,
Yeah.
like, please, you know. She never paid herself like on payroll or anything. She was just like taking cash from the business.
Mhm.
And she came back to me. She's like, so I saw your CPA. And she's like, I owe $60,000 in taxes. She's
Oh
like,
my
I'm going to cry.
Oh
I'm
my
like, oh my
God.
God, I can't believe that. But at the same time, I can, because
Yeah.
one, California is expensive, and two, like, you were just bankrolling yourself and just paying yourself in cash this whole time without any taxes the whole entire time, you
Yeah.
know? So it's definitely important
That's-
to
yeah.
like, you know, because it can snowball and like things can spiral, like with my friend where she had to pay 60,000. So,
Yeah, and
you
I
know,
think people avoid it because it's like they don't know. Like they're almost
Mhm.
too afraid to say that they're like uneducated on the subject.
yeah.
But it's like you can't avoid it because then later on
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
catch
It's
up
gonna come
to
to bite
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so many people are uneducated when it comes to finances too,
Oof,
because
extremely.
it's also like just like in American culture, like we don't really talk about
Mm-hmm.
finances very
Mhm.
openly so much. And then we're just kind of like left with whatever like our parents taught us in terms of like financial literacy. You know, like schools don't teach you like how to write a check or like how to do your taxes or anything
Which is
like
wild
that.
to
Yeah.
me.
And so
I find
like
that crazy. Why is that a thing? Like, why are they not teaching that? I don't know.
That's a whole other
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, like that's
they don't
I
care
know.
about making us like
Yeah.
responsible human
Like that's the most
beings.
important thing in life.
Yeah, right.
Like adulting.
Yeah, adulting 101.
Exactly.
Yeah, how to do your taxes.
I do
Yeah.
have two questions.
Yeah.
One's while we're on like the topic of, well, they're both kind of related to finances. What would you say to someone? I guess this is more like for me
Mhm.
because I think what I struggle with when it comes to like the financial part of it is like pricing my services and
Yeah.
being like, okay, my service is worth this price. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes I go back and forth and I give a lot of discounts and
Mhm.
like I just kind of want to get people through the door.
Yeah.
And so I think I undervalue my services. So
Mhm.
like, how do you work on that?
Yeah, so two things. I totally get where you're coming from because I feel
Mhm.
like I also experienced that when I first started out. For example, like my facials were like $100. Whereas today my facials are $425.
Mhm.
So I remember I had a mentor at the time where she was like, Mo, you need to start your facials off at 175. Just do it. She was like, it's going to be so hard to like raise the price on people because then you're going to lose people and you're going to kind of keep going through that over and over. And to be honest, I didn't listen to her.
Mhm.
It's like I prefer learning things the hard way or something. And so my prices were same, also low,
Mhm.
because I kind of had like that like mental block or like that maybe like fear or scarcity mentality of like not knowing my own worth or not feeling worthy of that price point. Like
Mhm.
if you told me like 8 years ago, like, oh, your facials are going to be $425
Yeah.
someday, I'd be like, what are you talking about? That's crazy, you know? I wish I would have listened to her because when I did go through with raising my prices, I did go through that where it's like, oh, I have to like tell everybody, hey, I'm raising my prices.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you kind of get like a little bit of backlash where people are then upset because they like can't afford to see you anymore, you know?
Mhm.
And then, you know, you still kind of have like some like clients that like get to be like homies almost. And you're like,
Yeah.
but I'll still honor the old prices for you.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of almost like essentially violating your own boundaries too and your
Mhm.
own self-worth. And so I say all of that to say that I wish that in the beginning I had my prices at what my mentor had
Mhm.
recommended for me to be at. But I would say that also on the other side of that, it's totally okay to price yourself at what you feel comfortable with too,
Okay.
you know? And clients will be different types of clients will be attracted to different types of price points too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know, so like you know, when something costs $100, everybody's like, oh yeah, I have 100, you know, so you're just getting
Mhm.
like anybody and everybody, especially if you have an online presence. Like you forget
Yeah.
there's like a whole world of people out there,
Yeah, for sure.
And so you're attracting all kinds of different people. But then once you kind of get to a certain tier, it's like I'm, not attracting people who are like, oh, I just wanted to try it or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like, no, I'm getting people who are committed and dedicated. They want to come in once a month regularly. They want to invest in products and all of that. So I say all that to say price yourself at whatever you feel comfortable at, but don't undervalue yourself. Always try to price yourself a little bit higher than what you think you would actually pay for something, because then that might actually even give you room for discounts or something. So that way you're not actually losing on your profit margins, because if you have a higher profit margin, then you kind of have more room to like wiggle with like, okay, it's a little slow, so I can do a promotion or a discount right
That
now.
makes sense.
But
Okay, I'm actually at 175.
that's great.
I was like
Yeah.
between 150 175 for the
Yeah.
basic facial, like
Yeah.
the customized
Yeah.
facial. So now that you said that, I'm like, okay.
You're like, okay, I'm good.
I just need to get comfortable with it, you
Yeah,
know?
totally. Well, and also
Mhm.
like I tell all of my students too, like I don't want anybody's facials to be under $200, honestly,
Okay.
because of the quality of work that we're doing, And also I know it is dependent also on like the area that you're in. Like if you're somewhere in like a tiny little town in the middle of the Midwest, that's going to be a different economic structure than, living in a big city like LA or New York,
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
also price yourself at like whatever you feel comfortable with, but you can also like reverse engineer things too. Like you can sit down and break down like what is the cost of a facial? How much is all of my back bar products? How much does it cost for me to do laundry? How much does it cost for the lights, for the rent, for blah, 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 everything? And then you can come up to like, okay, it actually cost me $50 or $75 or whatever it may be. And then you can double or triple that number. And then that,
I love that because then you
Yeah.
feel a little bit more comfortable. Like you're like, okay, like I need to
It makes
cover all
sense.
my
Yeah,
expenses
exactly.
and also make money. Like,
well, and
paying
thinking
yourself.
about like your time too,
yeah,
of
time,
like,
energy,
Yeah,
education.
because even if it's
Yeah.
just like a 1 hour facial, it's not just 1 hour.
Mm,
It's maybe the
cleaning
15
up.
minutes before or after.
Yeah.
And then also the years or the, hundreds of hours that you spend educating and, taking continuing educating classes too.
Mhm.
So it's all of that kind of factored into one. And I even tell my students too, it's also like a supply and demand issue as well. When
Mhm.
I had started my business, because my prices were so low, I was also very quickly overbooked.
Yeah.
And I found myself overbooked like 5 days a week. And it got to the point where I was literally booked for an entire year in advance.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I think it was like the year of 2018 or 2019. It was like in February. And I was like, hey guys, my books are closed for the rest of the year. People are like, what?
Wow.
I was like, yeah.
That's amazing,
And
though.
so
Yeah.
it was crazy though. It really gave me a lot of anxiety. Like my schedule was so full. Like I was like, well, where do I even fit like a dentist appointment,
Aw.
But I was like, okay, I'm doing something right here, but I also kind of have a problem at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was when I sought out a business coach for the first time. And she was also another voice of reason that was like, you need to raise your prices.
Yeah.
But she raised me to a scary price
Mhm.
because at that time, I don't know, it's like I went through so many like price jumps as I was like
Yeah.
growing and evolving and stuff. But I remember my facials were somewhere around 175, 200. And then she was like, you need to double your price. And
Wow.
so
Go up to
I was
4.
like, I cannot tell you how afraid I was of doing
Aw.
this. And I remember I had a virtual assistant at the time, and we had like drafted this email that we're going to send out to all my clients and everything. And she was going to send me like the draft, but she accidentally hit send. Yes. And she sent it to all of my clients. And I was like, oh my God. And
what
so I
happened?
wasn't like mentally prepared.
Yeah.
My phone was blowing up. Oh my God.
Oh.
My phone, like my email, my DMs, everything was blowing up. And honestly, I was getting cancellations left and right. I was having a total meltdown. I was
Aw.
like in tears that day, but I had clients. I was like, I have to pull it together,
Mhm.
I remember my friend was like, well, like this is kind of like how the universe like wanted it to
Yeah.
happen, like even if it was an accident. And so that was when I was booked a year in advance. So
Mhm.
about half of my clients ended up canceling.
Mm-hmm.
But I had raised my prices to double. So it ended up
Like it was an
equating.
equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
worked
then
out.
for me, again, it was just a very strong lesson in having boundaries of like my time and my energy, because you know how it is. It's like we give so much in our sessions
Mm-hmm.
that it's like we need to make sure we're not overworking ourselves, because if we're overworking ourselves, or if we find ourselves in a place of burnout, then it's like we're not good to anybody at
Yeah.
that point. You know, it's
Yeah,
like
you just
you
become
can't.
angry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
you can't pour from an empty cup, you
Mhm.
know? And so that was also when I really learned, you know, from being so overbooked, I was like, oh my God, I need to prioritize myself. I need to prioritize my self-care, you know,
Mhm.
doing things that help make me feel good. And also like, you know, okay, I can't schedule like 7 people in a day. I need to
Yeah.
make sure I schedule maybe 4 people maximum. I need to make sure I schedule myself a lunch break. Like what a thought, you know, eat some food in the middle of the day, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of how everything ended up going.
Wow.
Yeah.
And to kind of like fast forward, but also
Yeah.
bring back what you
Mhm.
said when you were working in that room, how did you
Mhm.
get from there to where you are now? Because now you have your own your
Yeah.
own space. Like how many years has that been? Like how did you get into that?
I would say the dream and the vision has kind
Mhm.
of evolved multiple times, but still like the underlying goal of helping people has
Mhm.
always remained the same this
Mhm.
entire time. I had originally moved from that single tiny little room
Mhm.
to my own brick and mortar, and that was in Ocean Beach in San Diego. And I realized after some time that that area was actually not the area I wanted to be in, just the vibe there.
Mhm.
And then I moved to a different area, and there I had 3 rooms. And then it was maybe like a few months after moving to this new location was when COVID hit. And so I had to let go of all of my employees. You know, we were in quarantine. I also got pregnant. So there was a lot of moving pieces. And I was in that space for maybe 5 years or so. I don't know. Everything's kind of blurry. Maybe 5 years. And then fast forward, I moved my location up north to Solana Beach, where I am now, where we've been for 2 years.
Mhm.
And that's where we have 2 rooms, and we have a storefront, and like everything again just like slowly evolved as the business evolved, and like as like the clients needs and demands also evolved too. You know, I first started off like not even having any retail, and then slowly, you know, got my retail license, and then I was able to do retail, and then my retail selection really grew. And then especially like during COVID, my online store basically like carried us through
Mhm.
quarantine and such. And so I also grew my online store with my inventory and different product lines and indie beauty brands and clean beauty and such. And yeah, so it really just kind of keeps
Yeah.
evolving
Mhm.
and growing day in, day out.
That's
So,
good.
And I can imagine like with all the clients that just like kind of swarmed to be your client,
Mhm.
like there's also probably estheticians that were like, teach me what you
Yeah.
know and stuff. So
Mhm.
like when did that start happening? When did the transition
Mhm.
happen from like esthetician to now educator?
Yeah, when I first started off, I had people coming to me actually that are like, I want to work for you, you know? And I'd be like, okay. And what I very quickly learned was it wasn't necessarily that they wanted to work for me, it was that they wanted to learn from me and then go do their own thing. So
Mm.
honestly, I was burned quite a few times in the beginning, and it was quite frustrating because I give so much of myself and I really pour into my employees and my different trainings and such. And so then I kind of got to a point where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this whole situation. And then I think it was in 2019, I had somebody that was like, hey, like, can I pay you to do a training for me? And I was like, yeah, sure. That actually makes way more sense instead of me hiring on
Yeah.
an employee and having to pay them to train them. And then they take from me and then they leave, you
Yeah.
know, before it's even like a 90-day, you know, probationary period. And so in 2019 was when I had one of my first students, and she was from Orange County, and she just drove down for the day, and we just spent a whole day just one-on-one teaching her things. And what I noticed a lot with my business is that things just kind of happened for me. And I was like redirected many times. And after I had that one girl from Orange County, I somehow randomly had this girl that came from France. And
Oh,
she
wow.
was like, I want to learn from you. And I was like, okay.
What's going on here?
And then it just grew. And then I remember very distinctly, it was like, January of 2020, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a whole class. Like I'm going to have a group of like 10 people or something. It's going to be so much fun. And I had the date set for like the end of March in 2020. And then, COVID happened and everything. And I was like, okay. So then we had to like postpone it and then postpone it again, because of like closures and everything.
Yeah.
And then I was also pregnant at the time. So then it got to a point where then I was like, I'm just so pregnant. Like I have to do this class. So I ended up doing a group of people that were from local, like in San Diego. And then with my people that were flying in from different areas of the United States is where I started doing one-on-ones. And what I found with the one-on-ones is that we were able to sometimes get so much farther faster, depending on somebody's, background knowledge or how fast somebody learns, or we're really able to like go at somebody's pace. And that was where my one-on-ones were born. And so then I was like doing one-on-ones for a while. And then after that, then I started doing online workshops for people. I know I've mentioned like the Facebook esthetician groups and stuff, but that was where I would kind of like post about my workshops. And I remember like one of my biggest ones, I had like 135 people sign up for an online workshop. And I was like, whoa, this is so crazy. And it would be people from all over, like Argentina, Spain, England, Brazil, all over the United States, Mexico, Alaska, all these different places. Wow. And so I was doing my online stuff. And then I think that kind of aligned with whenever you reached out to me.
Yes. It's like everything keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
and bigger
totally. Yeah. And so it was really cool, like speaking at the conferences this past year. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity because now I feel like I've grown so much, since then. And now I'm kind of coming back to offering in-person workshops and such. Again, like I had a baby, so things were like on pause for a while. And so now even tomorrow, I'm going to be hosting a buccal workshop.
I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring my camera so I can kind of get like behind the scenes of it and everything.
Love it. Yeah. So it was really fun though, doing the workshops or the conferences with you guys, because it was so funny when I had like my online stuff of like, 135 people. I was like, I'm so nervous. And I'm like behind a screen, and then like going up on stage with you guys, I'm like, oh my God.
No, and your classes, no matter the state, was packed. Your class really did really good. Like standing, people were even standing. Like there wasn't enough chairs for her.
It was so crazy, like to see people like literally like sitting on the floor, like lining up in the aisles or along the walls door, and everything. Like I just could not believe it. I would just like try not to I would just pretend like everybody's not there, so I don't get too nervous and like trip up on my words and everything. But it was such a great opportunity. I can't thank you guys enough for all of the exposure because so much has happened in the past year from you guys giving me this opportunity. So
that means so much.
Yeah, totally. Like last summer I hosted a retreat for estheticians. It was a 2-day or 3-day retreat. Yeah. And half of the people came from the conferences.
That's
no
amazing.
way. That's what I was gonna ask you. Like from the conferences that you spoke at, did you get a lot of like feedback, or a lot of like the attendees that were there? Are they now like some of your clients? Are they your students? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I would say not really any clients since it's all basically professionals, but definitely in terms of like the educational opportunities that I have to offer for people in terms of my online workshops or my in-person trainings. It's definitely opened a lot of doors and kind of also shown to others that there's more than just skincare, involved in being an esthetician. For example, like I have somebody who's going to be in the class tomorrow who I gave away like one scholarship spot, and she wrote me in
wow.
about her story and everything. And she was like, I was just kind of feeling lost, as an esthetician, but she was like, I found you at ICES, and she was like, I took both of your classes there, and she was like, I fell in love, and she was like, now I know like this is the path I want to be pursuing and going on, is being a holistic esthetician. And so that just was really like, heartwarming to be like, wow, that's so cool that I was able to inspire somebody just with, my work and with what I'm doing, because I think ultimately the world needs more of what we're doing with, holistic massage, and touch-based modalities and such. Like I also like to teach estheticians that, we're able to get skincare results just through massage. Like it doesn't even matter sometimes like what products we're using and so on and so forth. But, it was really cool to just, connect and network with other brands, or also other estheticians from all over the country, and also people from all different backgrounds too. Some people there were maybe like business owners, some people were cosmetologists or estheticians and so on, or some people were like for 20 years or like for 1 year, or like still in school. And so it was really awesome seeing a wide variety of different backgrounds. Yeah.
That's so inspiring. Like actually, because it's like, obviously we put it together and we do all the work for this, but a lot of times we don't get to like experience what it is that you experience, and the feedback and what the attendees want more of or stuff like that. So hearing that from you is just, at least to me, like means a lot,
And I think you're a really good like natural born educator.
Thank you.
Like because I'm taking her class tomorrow, but I've been doing the online workshops, and it's pretty much like everything you would want to know all together, like so comprehensive all together, which is why I think it's important for estheticians to learn from estheticians who are already successful, because it's like you're basically telling us not just like
giving you guys the cheat code.
like we're going into your brain basically.
The playbook.
The playbook literally. And so
definitely.
even just from this week I've learned a lot about face sculpting, lymph, and it's been helpful. So I'm super grateful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It's not just one day workshop. Like when you sign up for a workshop with her, you're going to get like a bunch of online workshops as well, which is really nice with a lot of information.
Thank you. I mean, that's definitely something like I pride myself on, because as I was seeing so many clients, my books are full. People are like, well, where can I find somebody like you, but in my city or whatever? And that was kind of also where I saw this white space of like, there's just this overall, just this education or holistic knowledge that is really lacking in the industry. And so what I pride myself in is that I really try to break things down as simple as possible. So that way it's like in these tiny little like manageable like bite sizes for newer estheticians or people who are just now getting into, the holistic skincare world, or just now getting into massage and so on. Because sometimes, like for example, I just took a workshop recently with this Polish guy, and it was great, but it was 3 days long. It was so packed, like every single hour and everything, and I'm like, I kind of wish like, it was like more manageable. And
like
so
to digest
to digest and
class,
also to be able to go home and incorporate it too, so even like my online stuff has come a long way too, just like with the presentations or the recordings or all of that. But yeah, I really definitely, I pride myself in, being able to provide really these small like maintainable like modules for estheticians to really understand and go and apply it and understand why they're applying it and how, and also in a way that's going to be beneficial for themselves, maybe in raising their prices or elevating their services, and also integrating these new techniques into their practice that are not going to burn them out too. Because what's so important to me, as I've been an esthetician for 12 years, is that I notice so many people are kind of, in and out of this industry. Honestly, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of transients.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is that a lot of people end up burning themselves out, unfortunately. And so what I try to do with all of my techniques and the things that I teach people are, you know, things that you can apply and like figure out like, okay, how can I do this in an ergonomic way? So that way I'm not straining or stressing myself or my body. And I'm able to, you know, do this for 8 hours a day and, you know, maybe for 20 years, for a whole
Yeah.
career length, you
Mhm.
know? So,
Well, I think you've definitely accomplished that because, like, I started with the lymph workshop, and then literally the day after, I was doing like facial cupping, and then I started educating my client on the lymph, like
Yes.
basically what I had just learned in that
Mhm.
class. And
Mhm.
I think you're right. Like, if you go to like a 3-day class and you're just getting a bunch of information thrown at you, you're not going to absorb everything.
Mhm.
So having something where you can like absorb it,
Mhm.
kind of like teach it to your clients, apply it, and then
Mhm.
go on to the next step is really
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah, definitely. And then to your point, even just being able to have that like knowledge to then go and educate your clients
Mhm.
too. Because I think there's also a lack of education for clients
Mhm.
as well. And that's where maybe sometimes people end up pursuing things that maybe like they could have pursued other things beforehand. So, namely, maybe they're pursuing like Botox or fillers when maybe they're only like, you know, a young 20-something-year-old.
Yeah.
And maybe they could have just used some lymphatic drainage
Yeah, like
or,
you talked
you
about
know,
the
double
double
chin. Yes.
chin and how some people will like go and get surgery for double
Uh-huh.
chin, but if they just like commit to
Oh yeah,
doing
there's so many ways to.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I
And-
love watching those videos with
Yeah.
like the gua shas and the natural,
Gua
even like with
sha,
like your
yeah.
fingers, stuff like that,
Massage.
massaging your neck, like
Yeah.
the lymphs, all that.
Totally.
You can fix it. So if
Yeah.
there's anyone who's interested in these courses that you offer, where can they find the information or where can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So my main platform is going to be Instagram. I
Mhm.
would say my Instagram handle is at Heal Thy Goddess. That's where you can find me. That's where I'm the most active. And then also my website, www.healthygoddess.co. And I do post on my website and on my Instagram when I have upcoming workshops, either online or in person. We have our next in-person one, obviously, tomorrow here in Miami. And then after that, I'm going to be doing one local in San Diego in the summer, probably like June or something. And then hopefully some more online stuff in between now and then.
Awesome.
And then also I do have pre-recorded workshops available on my website too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we'll
all the
definitely
time.
put all the links down below.
Thank you.
So they can just click on that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for all of this.
Yeah.
We're super excited to have you.
I know, thank you for coming. I really love your
Yeah.
topic because
Yeah.
I think we actually get into the nitty gritty of things like
Especially
valuable
finances,
information.
yeah.
We don't really like, I feel like finance is such a like taboo topic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's nice
totally.
for you to like be honest and really share like what helped you and what you learned. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Yeah, I'm happy to share. And hopefully my experiences and all my mistakes can teach other people what not to do.
Yeah. Actually listen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lots of valuable information.
Yeah, that way you'll be a 6-figure esthetician overnight. You
Yeah.
got this.
Well, bye,
Bye.
Esties.
Bye.